All right. Okay, everybody, welcome. My name is Dr. Ara Supaya. I am I went to I'm from Malaysia. I went to medical school in England, trained in Liverpool University Medical School. God, I graduated in 1995. It's so long ago. Um, and trained as a surgeon, board certified as a surgeon. Didn't like it, switched to emergency medicine, loved it. While working in emergency medicine, discovered sports medicine primarily because I met an athlete who came into the ER with a sprained ankle. And as he was leaving, he said, when can I play again? And I had grown up in Malaysia playing tennis. I played at a very high level competitively, wanted to turn pro. So, like many of you, I'm a wannabe athlete, a lifelong athlete, and so I very such an interesting situation. I couldn't answer such a simple question: when can I compete again? Right? And that's what got me into sports medicine. And then when I started working in sports, I trained as an allopathic physician, you know, um, and it was all injuries. And when I worked on the European tour with professional golfers, I realized very few of them really were injured. The challenges they would pose was, I'm tired all the time. How do I overcome jet lag? Or like my allergies are really bad, right? And so I would run the blood work for fatigue athlete that I was taught to do, and it'll come back normal. And the interesting reaction I would have was I'll go tell them, hey, all your bloods came back normal. And again, this is way back. This is like in the early 2000s. And they'd be like, oh, it's great, but like, why do I still feel this way, right? Which then led me down a path at that time looking at things like cortisol. Because of my background, I was working with the Team GB cycling team. I met a few people there and I got introduced to another way of looking at the athlete. So I started looking at things like cortisol, hormone response, allostatic load, and all that kind of thing that go on to an athlete, which I wasn't taught formally in medical school. So fast forward, I did my residency in emergency medicine, completed that sports medicine, and then I moved to the United States in 2006. Redid my residency in emergency medicine in New York, Long Island, and then started working with all professional golf really, and from there, my work just by word of mouth, no advertising, nothing, word of mouth. I started working with baseball players, tennis players. I work with track and field athletes. I've got players in the U.S. Soccer team, and I still work in the ER, right? But in that time, since the time I moved to the United States, I formally trained in functional medicine at IFM, the Institute of Functional Medicine. I trained in Hamilton University in acupuncture. I've studied Ayurvedic medicine. I got formally trained in strength and conditioning. I've also completed the master's training with Gary Gray's Institute uh, in rehabbing someone. And then I also completed culinary medicine with Tulane University. So the reason I did all of that was primarily to serve my athlete. Okay. So what I want to cover in this webinar is part of it is your approach to working, whether it's a professional athlete, everyday athlete, any person in front of you. How do you come across that? And then I want to specifically show you a case that we deal with on a regular basis. And then I'll tell you about the masterclass, and then we'll take some questions. Okay? Sounds good? All right. This ticket here changed my life. This was, if you look at the date, July 2000. I drove overnight from Liverpool, so it's about a 5-hour drive to St. Andrews to go see one player, Tiger Woods. I was an obsessed golfer, and my coach said, if you want to watch Tiger, go during the practice round. So you see Wednesday, tournament starts on Thursday. And he goes, get there early because Tiger will be out. So I was like, okay. So I drive overnight. I get to St. Andrews at 5 a.m. It was just a gorgeous day. Park my car, super excited, walk to the entrance, and there's a rope there, and the lady goes, no, you can't come in. And I'm like, I got a ticket. And she's like, no, that's a general admission ticket. You can't get in till 8:30. And I was like, 8:30? I was like, Tiger would be gone by then. And she's like, it is. That's what it is. And so I was like, okay, and I tried to charm my way into it. Like, no, she wasn't having any of it. No chance. But then I would notice that people would, every now and again, and the line started, forming behind me, people would come up, like flash a badge, and they would get through. So after I saw that a few times, I asked the lady, I was like, well, what is that thing that they have? And she goes, well, they got credentials. And I was like, well, what's a credential? I had no idea. Like, what is that? And she goes, well, they work in the event, so they get a badge that allows them to come in. And so I left that day. I got to see like Tiger play one hole, and then I hung around for a bit and I drove back. And on my drive back that day, I was like, okay, you know what? I am willing to outwork anybody. I just need to be shown how to do this. And I was like, I need to get credentials. I need to be inside the ropes. And I say this not to boast you, but like that was the last time I stood behind a rope. After that, I got inside the ropes. I got credentials to be inside the ropes. And the way I did it was, I'm going to share how I did it, right? But there's two things. One is getting inside the ropes, and the other is staying inside the ropes, right? So one is being able to have a conversation with an athlete and then having the athlete work with you for 10 years. You can show them the development, like you can develop with them, you can grow with them, right? How do you do that? Well, this slide here is extremely telling. So if you look at this part of the slide here, right? These are two people, two athletes, two individuals, two business people, doesn't matter what it is. You probably saw them in school, going on two exactly parallel paths, okay? And then something happens here that allows them to take off. Okay, so this would be like all the athletes competing with Michael Jordan, and then boom, Michael takes off. Okay, this is all the kids were playing with Tiger, and then Tiger takes off. Okay, this is all the people that went to school with Steve Jobs, and then Steve takes off. So I've always been fascinated by this. Like, what happens here that separates somebody from another person, right? And looking back, I never set out to have so-called the success or whatever it is that I have right now. I wanted to work with athletes because it was the closest thing to being a professional athlete that I could be, right? And so I look back and I see how did this all happen? And a couple of key things stand out for me, right? One is when you work with athletes, they are exposed, especially at the higher level, they're exposed to a lot of people. So athletes need to know that you care. Okay? And they care that you care. And this is especially important now because of AI and what can be done by machines and all those things, right? It's even more important that the athlete has no doubt that you care immensely about them. And I'm going to show you how you do that genuinely, right? Not placating it, not trying to put a show on. Number one, they need to know that you care because you do care. Number two, in all my time, you look at all those players there, they're all major winners, world number ones, tennis, men, women, like team events, whatever, right? In all the time I worked with all these athletes, I worked with every single one of them. Not once did they say, can I see your medical degree? Not once. It's shocking. Never has anyone said, I want to see your credentials, right? Because I was able to get results. So if you can get results with them, that's how you keep remember I told you, like, once getting inside the rope, how do you stay there? You have to be able to get results. Okay? And results are not necessarily the wins. Like especially in tennis, you'll see this. A coach will stay, even if the athlete's not winning, they will never let go of the strength and conditioning coach because they have a relationship and a trust there, right? So as long as the athlete is seeing progress, that's the result that you want to go after, right? And third, especially in this day and age, the athletes are bombarded with information. So if you are getting your information, say, from Huberman podcast or Peter Attia or a journal that's been summarized and someone has done a podcast on it, right? Information is everywhere now, right now. And this photo to me, like this is a real photograph. This is not photoshopped. This one like Nat Geo photograph, I think was like in 87. Like this is a real photograph. Okay. And I love this photograph because it is completely counter. Like you would think the lion will be killing the buffaloes, but this lion is like running for its life. Okay. And there's an insight in here. And that's what these athletes, when you talk to these athletes, I'll give you an example. If you hear most of these podcasts, right, they are all sponsored by AG1 or Momentous or, some protein powder or some supplement or something like that. So these athletes have all heard of it. But if I were to have a conversation about any of the protein powders, I would talk about protein bioavailability. I would talk about the amino acid profile. Because now that information is not out there. That's an insight. So you can say, Momentous is really good for this, but I like Grenade for this, or I like BioPro for this. That's what's going to separate you. Okay. And that's my final point. Okay. To get yourself into the framework of where we're going, you want to separate yourself so that in a crowd, the athlete picks you. Okay. And you do that by having these insightful conversations about things that they've all known about, they've heard other people talk about, but the others are not talking about it at the level at which you are. Okay. Which automatically, without you saying a word, separates you. And the athlete comes and goes, tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean protein bioavailability? Like what is that? Like where is that on the label? Okay. If you can do that conversation, if you can have that level of a conversation, then I will tell you from personal experience of doing this for 20 years, 30 years almost, you don't need a business card. You don't need to promote yourself. Like I have spent all my time mastering, like chasing after excellence, about mastery, not marketing. I don't write blogs. I don't chase likes. I don't know how to do any of that, right? If you saw an ad to get you here, that's because Ashley and my team did that. Like I just do this. This is what I care about. And this is why my athletes know that this is what I care about. Okay. So how do you get an athlete to know that you care? No matter what the situation, I start with these three questions. Why this athlete? Why this situation, injury, illness, and why now? Okay. I would challenge you that if you can answer these three questions for that situation, you totally understand the case in your head. Okay. And also, this kind of question, like why this athlete? What's unique about this person? Okay, what's your background? Did they have sick illnesses as a child? Were they vaccinated? Did they travel in multiple places? What's their mom's background? What's their, were they born as a C-section? Like I go into that level of detail. Okay. And in the course, I teach you how to do that because every piece of that information is really, really important in understanding how you're going to solve this problem for this athlete. What predisposes this athlete to have this situation, right? And then why this injury? So let's say, the example I always give is like, let's say they have right-sided tennis elbow. My question will be, well, why is it not the wrist? Why is it the elbow? Why is it not the shoulder? If they had autoimmune disease, I'm like, well, why did they get autoimmune disease? Why did they not get something else? If the allergies are flaring up, like, why is it the allergies? Why was it this that happened to this athlete? And then why now? what is going on with them right now? Did they change their diet? Are they going through a financial crisis? Are they stressed about the way they're competing? Are they having difficulties at home? Is there an issue at the job? Like, are they training super hard? Are they not training? Have they given up? What's going on with them now? Okay. And these three questions, remember the first thing I told you, secret number one, athletes care that you care. If you ask questions like this, okay, you will connect with them. These allow you to have a detailed conversation with them that most people are not doing. Okay. By definition, I don't have, like, my appointments are however long. However long it takes me to answer those questions is how long I need to see you for. Typically, it's about an hour and a half, but sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, but I have to answer those questions. So I don't work by time. I work by, okay, that's how much it costs for me to do my job, right? The details, you asking those questions will allow those athletes to appreciate you and say, wow, no one has asked me this. So I give them a set of questions. Like, before you meet with me, ask your mom, what is the pregnancy like? Ask your parents, were you colicky? How many times did you get sore throats needing antibiotics? Did you have your appendix removed? What was your challenges as a child? Like, all those questions, right? Secondly, when you come up with a solution, because it's why this athlete, why this injury, and why now, your solution is personalized to them. It's not a generic solution that you give to everybody. And that's how they know, wow, this person really cares about me. Because I've heard them give advice to somebody else and it wasn't anything like what they're telling me. To a point where they'll say, how come you told them to do that? And I'll go, because that's not who you are. You're this person. Okay. And finally, what this does, where it's really good for you is, and for me, it challenges me. It challenges me not to jump to conclusion. It challenges me not to put a band-aid. Is it easy to do what I just asked you to do? No. But is it worth it? 100%. Because you will have a relationship with that athlete like nobody else has. Okay? And so it's challenging. It stimulates your own growth to make you better. And each time you do this, you will serve the other athlete, the other athlete, the other athlete better and better and better, because you will get better at this. Okay? This is my approach to my athletes. So my functional sports medicine approach is based on, I trained in all of this, right? So if you look at each one of those segments, either through Institute of Functional Medicine or to my nutrition training or, soft tissue work, I've studied this extensively. I've also done courses on genetics and stuff, but it took me a while to put it together. I studied them all in different parts, okay? And way back, Usain Bolt made a statement. He said, 50% of my training is rest and recovery, because I need to allow my body to absorb the training that I'm doing, okay? So the rest and recovery part I got. What I was perplexed with was like, what does he mean? Like, allow my body to absorb the training. Why would a body absorb a training and another body not absorb the training? Turns out it's chronic inflammation. The more inflamed you are, the less likely you are able to absorb training. Okay. So if you look at the base of this pyramid, the bottom here is chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation comes from and affects one of these 5 segments in the green. Okay. Your energy pathways, your immune system, your detox pathways, your hormones, and your neuroskeletal system. Okay. So I'll give you an example. If you have pain, if you have chronic inflammation, you have pain. Now, pain is going to generate chronic inflammation, right? Chronic inflammation can generate pain. But now this has a profound effect on sleep, which is going to affect your brain chemistry, which then is going to affect your immune system. and it's going to dampen your energy pathways. So they're all interconnected. We study them in isolation, and in the course, we study them in isolation until the end when we put it all together. Okay. And then my personal philosophy is drive inflammation down, maximize energy pathways, maximize the immune system, maximize ability to detoxify, optimize hormones, make sure the skeletal system is as good as it can be, and then get busy training, because now you can train hard and you can absorb that training and then recover from that training. If you can recover from the training, you can train again. And if you keep repeating the cycle, you build resilience. Okay? And athletic performance is on top of resilience. The best athletes in the world, whether professional or not, the best individuals in the world, I would argue, the best moms, the best teachers, the best firefighters, they are resilient, meaning they are able to adapt. Okay, small things don't break them. Okay? And this whole thing is governed by your genetics, your epigenetics. So genetics alone, less than 0.1% of genetics, 0.5% are fully penetrable, meaning if you have those genes, you are going to get that illness. 99% of genetics need your epigenetics, means you have the bullets, but you need to get them to fire. So your environment, your epigenetics will also affect your genetics. So all of that is in this, right? So this was my practice for a long, long time. And I put this together in 2014. And then I created the course, which I'll go through in a minute, right? Each one of those things. So the course has 14 modules. We cover each one of those sections separately. But again, I'll talk about the course later for now. And this is what you will get. So look at this. Things like assessing how much inflammation there is in someone, analyzing sleep and HRV data, okay? Analyzing how to use a continuous blood glucose monitor. The ability to, I'll show you this right now, how to analyze a food diary, okay? Estrogen balance, gut immunity, and then things like this, identifying overreaching before it becomes overtraining. Those are all the things you will get when you do the course, okay? Let's start. So that's all set up before I teach you. So now I'm going to start teaching you properly. All right. Okay. So everybody see this FedEx sign? Yeah. Okay. Do you all see the arrow in the FedEx sign? I don't know if you can say, is the chat working, Ash?
No, you have to enable it on your end, but we can start doing it in question form.
Okay.
So if you
So
put it
go
in
to
the
the question
question.
form and just say, do you see the, or otherwise mute yourself, unmute yourself and just say, hey, do you see the arrow? Anyone see the
Yep.
arrow?
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
Yep.
There's the arrow, right? Now, how many people did not see the arrow?
I see a few on the questions that didn't see it.
Okay. All right. Now, I love this slide because now that you've seen the arrow, you can't unsee it. Every time you see this damn FedEx sign, you're going to see this stupid arrow. Okay? And this course, this training is exactly like that. If you sign up for the course, great. If you don't sign up for the course, great. I want to leave you with something that I promise you two things. You will never look at the athlete the same again. And if you do this right, the athlete will never look at you the same again. Okay? All right. So, Hans Selye from Canada came up with this thing called general adaptation syndrome. And what he showed was if you take an individual, a cell, organism, okay, it doesn't matter if it's a cell or an organism or a person, and you put them under stress, they will respond in this predictable, reproducible manner. That's important, okay? It's predictable. That means if I put you under stress, in the initial stage, your resilience, your performance will go down. But then if you stay through it, it will go back up because you'll adapt to the stress. then you'll plateau, and then you'll start going down again. And then if you put things in place here, where it's distress, you will rebound again. This is a predictable response, physiological response. Just like if I were to touch something super hot, I'm going to burn myself. Okay? I may respond to the pain differently, but I will burn. If you stress an organism, that's what's going to happen. So we take this and we look at the athlete. Okay? You start the athlete here. Someone comes into you for the first time and you work with them and you put them through your training methodology, whatever your background is, okay? At that point, they'll go through the alarm stage. You will see they'll be like, oh, I'm not really good at this. Like, I'm struggling with this. Just stay with it. Just stay with it. As you keep going, they will overshoot. And this is the most joyous moment. Everybody's happy. You're happy. The athlete's happy. The parents are happy. The spouse is happy. Everybody's happy. The other team members are happy. This is like perfect, okay? And then all this will come to a place where you reach plateau, okay? In the science, we call this accommodation, okay? So you had a significant period of improvement, then you plateau. And then if you say, like most athletes, when they are here, they are super excited. They keep working hard. And then they see the gains diminishing. What do most driven athletes want to do at this point? They want to train even harder. Okay. And if they do that, or they like push through this, oftentimes you'll see performance start dropping. That's called overreaching. Okay. And at that point, we should intervene. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay. If you don't, you're going to end up in a case of overtraining. Overreaching is actually a good thing. It shows that you've maxed the athlete out. You maxed out that person. Now you need to give them a break. But if you don't and you keep pushing them, overreaching will recover within 2-3 weeks. If you push them to overtraining, that has an effect on your hormones, your entire body. That's going to take months to years to get better. Okay, so we don't want, in 20 years of doing, I've seen one overtrained athlete, truly overtrained, truly overtrained. See a lot of overreaching, okay? And if you address overreaching, they will rebound. And if you look at this plateau here, this point here is higher than the one here. So they've got better, okay? And you keep doing that, you end up fulfilling the genetic potential. Okay, now, if you're working with athletes, there will be injuries, there will be sickness, there will be pain. It's part and parcel of what they buy into if you want to fulfill your genetic potential. That's the price that we pay, okay? My question is, why does this happen? So this is a scenario that you're all going to get, which is why I wanted to serve you today, okay? You're going to get an athlete who's going to come into it. Typically here, okay, they feel great. They might even feel achy and stuff, but their results are pushing them through. Then they get to this point here, plateau, and then they dip. And usually they're tired or they got an illness, right? And ideally, you don't want to let that happen. But let's say it does, okay? And they're tired. My question is, why does this happen? Like, why do they start dipping? Why does this not just keep going like this? Why does the plateau just not keep going if you keep working? Why do we dip? Okay. If we dip, okay, brace yourself. This slide is extremely ugly and extremely busy. I apologize. Well, actually, don't apologize, but this is the slide, okay? You dip because of the allostatic response. Okay, so at this stage here, the allostatic response allows you to adapt. Okay, you're adapting. Now you're like, I've reached my adaptation. I can't adapt anymore. Here I'm like, I'm getting fried, dude. I can't adapt. I'm maladapting. Okay, that happens because of what we call the allostatic response. And in the course, I go through this section by section. Now, if you look at it, the allostatic response has an endocrine effect, affects the immune system, and affects the nervous system, which can be pain, can be sleep, can be mood, okay? It affects how you metabolize protein, carbs, and fats, okay? As well as micronutrients. So the allostatic response is a global, profound response that affects the athlete when they are, when they are here. When they no longer can adapt, you are going down here. It's because it has a profound, like that load now is getting too much for the athlete and it's starting to affect all of those systems, okay? The other thing is you end up getting something called oxidative stress. Oxidative stress, for those of you, best example of this, if you cut an apple and you leave it out, it turns brown. That's oxidative stress. Rust is oxidative stress. So I would call that internal rusting in the athlete, okay? Oxidative stress is not a bad thing. If you see this here, this is a research paper. And again, like I have over 200 research papers. I back up everything I say on at the course, okay? If you look at this, during exercise, you produce reactive oxygen species or reactive nitrogen species, which drives the oxidative stress, okay? And you do it in these cycles. See this? As you train, you adapt to this oxidative stress, okay? And so it's critical when you're training an athlete. Now, and here's the distinction. Remember I told you they would have all heard of this. Most people say you need antioxidants. AG1 has a bunch of antioxidants. You're an athlete, you need antioxidants. True. But if you give it at the wrong time and you mop up all the oxidative stress, you don't force them to adapt. So I use antioxidants very strategically in the back end of my training. I want to push them really hard, okay? And then this is what happens. So as you get trained, okay, your performance goes up, even though you're being exposed to more and more oxidative stress. As you're getting more and more oxidative stress, your performance will go up. But after a certain point, performance starts dropping. This is the point, or just before here, I start putting antioxidants in their diet. So that's when I would have a conversation. If they have like a really professional athlete, will have a chef, and you say, this is what you do. I would say, hey, I want you to add this into your diet. Or if you're a regular athlete, you say, you know what? Cut out all your blueberries here. Seriously. Put in a 3-week block, cut out your blueberries, train super hard, and then we'll introduce it here. See, that's the conversation that will separate you from the other people. Because everybody else will not be saying that. They'll be like, oh, antioxidants, great. No, it's not great. It's great if you give it in the right time. If you give it in the wrong point, you're losing out, you know? So like here, I will not use antioxidants here. I will use them, I'll get them to go through the hardship, honor the struggle. Here, around here, I'll start using antioxidants. And sometimes they can even bounce back a little bit if I do that right. But certainly if they're here, I'll definitely start using it, right? The other reason this happens is because they're not eating enough. This is especially common in female athletes and teenagers, especially teenage boys. They cannot eat enough too. Oh my God. Okay. And if you look at this, if you don't have enough energy, it has an effect on your psychological profile, your mood, okay? Menstrual cycle, immune function. I mean, look at this. Profound effect on the body. And that's one of the reasons why performance starts coming down. Because you pushed and pushed and pushed, and you really couldn't keep up with the nutrient demands. And you saw the allostatic load. It starts affecting how you digest proteins, carbs, and micronutrients and fats. Okay? Which is why, I spend a lot of time teaching this. Energy balance versus energy availability. Okay? There's a lot of talk on energy balance. Energy balance basically is the classic calorie in, calorie out. If I need, 25,000 calories to work out, sleep, eat, and I eat 25,000 calories, I have energy balance. Energy availability is the amount of energy that's available to run your immune system, to detoxify, to repair muscle, to run a menstrual cycle, to run your reproductive system. Okay? So if you don't have energy availability, you end up in trouble. Okay? And similarly, like if you look at this, for example, this is a true data from an athlete of mine who competed in the sun, very hot conditions. Okay? His average heart rate for 5 hours was 124. So most people in the heat will do what? They will drink. And then they'll drink the electrolytes that they heard from the latest podcast, right? LMNT, this, that, whatever. What they don't realize is they've been doing cardio for like this is a golfer. So they're not running, they're just walking. But for 5 hours in that heat, his average heart rate is 124, when his baseline is about 65. So think about the amount of cardio he's done for 5 hours. So is it surprised that his calorie requirement has gone up significantly? Does your athlete know that? No. Your athlete knows in the heat, I need to drink. Your athlete knows I need to put electrolytes in there. And the electrolyte that he knows or she knows is probably from what they heard in the podcast, right? Nobody's going to say to them, hey, you need to eat. Now, in this particular real situation, we were in Saudi Arabia and this athlete was competing in the heat. And after 2 days, he was like fried. And he said, dude, something's wrong. I think I need an IV. And I was like, why? Because I've drank like 27 bottles of water and electrolytes and I'm dead. I'm tired. And so I said, like, you're not eating enough. Okay. A way to cheat the system here is if he needs 1,000 calories more, that's a lot to eat. Okay. And in the heat, when you're tired, you don't feel like eating. So I got him to eat ice cream. So I said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get a tub of ice cream and you're going to eat the whole tub. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah. And sure enough, within 24 hours, he felt great. The problem is he did it for a week. And I was like, no, dude, like I told you to do it for 2 days. Okay. It was only in the sun. And I saw this when I was working in the UK and I had access to data for the special forces. And the UK Special Forces did this training program where they ran 26 miles. They ran a marathon a day in the Sahara Desert. And they had to carry their own water in a backpack. And in order to meet the calorie requirements, they would have Mars bars in a tub. And the Mars bars would melt. And they would get out, like they would just literally eat that to meet their calorie requirements. Which is why, like Michael Phelps, 10,000 calories a day, he has to eat pizza and like what we call bad foods. Because rule number 1, calories are king. You have to meet your calorie requirement. Then you got to meet your macros. Then you can talk about whether the macros are clean or not clean. Then you got to hit your micros. And then you got to do all of that with hydration, right? Rule number 1, if you don't meet calorie requirements, the system will start shutting down. Okay. Which is why I spend a lot of time. So this is part of like when you do the course, if you do the course, this is your homework. This is one of your assignments. So I give you this. If you look at this, Monday to Sunday, the length of the day is here. So they're up at 6:50 and they go to bed at 11 p.m. Okay? And it's all here. And then I show you what they eat and what they train. Okay? How many of you here right now think you will be able to like look at this and break it down in a way that like you're confident that you can break down the nutrients in this? How many of you can you put it in the chat or put in the question or open up your mic and say yes or say no? How many of you are confident you can answer this? Do you think you can interpret this? You can unmute yourself and answer.
I think
A few
it
no's.
might take a little time, but I think I can probably get pretty close.
Okay, that's really
Amazing.
good. So this is how I look at this data, okay? For the diet, I look at exactly this: meal timing, meal content, calories. Now you can use this equation as a rough guesstimate, but nowadays there's so many devices that can measure this accurately, okay? And then I look at all of this. Then I look at the training volume exactly this way. And then I look at the sleep. Now I look at it here, okay? And when it comes to sleep, I will share with you something later, okay? But I look at sleep cycles, I look at two things: duration of sleep and sleep cycles. So we have a situation here. We have a tired athlete, and we identified, okay, you know what? We probably know, like, we expect them to be tired at this stage. We understand why they're tired, okay? What do we do with this? So why this athlete? Okay, male, female, what age, what kind of sport, all those things. Why these symptoms and why now? Okay, so in this case, the background, like this athlete's just gone through a training program, and then we know the load. You should have all of this, right? And you have the background. Is it off season, mid season, preseason? Are they training 5 days a week, 7 days a week? Are they training for an Ironman? Did they just have a baby? Are they selling their business? Are they teenagers going through a growth spurt? Is things tough at school? Are they going to college? Are they nervous? What is going on with this athlete right now? That's what you need to interpret all this data on. That's the background. Okay. So when I say why now, I want to know all those things. And then I want to ask them a whole bunch of questions. Okay. In particular, I always start off with, like, okay, be honest with me. What's your energy level like right now? Okay. Now, hopefully I had done that through this period too. I always ask this question: what's your energy like? How much muscle soreness you have? What was your sleep like? And how's your mood? Happy, not happy? There's apps that'll do this for you. Okay. But I also want to ask them about symptoms of inflammation, which may or may not be obvious. A lot of times, symptoms of inflammation are subtle. I also want to ask them symptoms of, like, underactive thyroid. Okay. And just to give you an idea, these are the symptoms of chronic inflammation here. Look at this. It's not just redness, pain, swelling, increased temperature, but look at this: fatigue, loss of willpower, increased body fat, brain fog, loss of speed, power, endurance, recurrent injuries, okay? Allergies flaring up, changes in mental cycle. These are all, when they have any of this, it tells me, like, they're probably chronically inflamed. So if you remember my triangle, the bottom there, I'm like, okay, this is going up. Then I got to go and say, well, where is this coming from, right? But let's just start there. Then if I wanted to, like, if I ran blood work, I would look, most people's markers for inflammation is just one or two. They look at the CRP or they look at the ESR. And I was working in the ER in England, and I remember this guy came in, and he was a drug addict who shot himself up, and he had a huge abscess on his forearm. Okay. It was red, angry, pus was coming out of it. He had a fever. Like, clearly this guy was inflamed. Okay. Every sign. His CRP was normal. And so I remember asking the boss, I said, like, hey, why would this CRP be normal? He couldn't tell me. And for the longest time, I didn't know. Turns out CRP is a surrogate marker for something called interleukin-6. Okay. And just like you'll see some kids, when they're sick, they'll mount a very high fever, and some kids won't. Okay. We have a genetic predisposition, a tendency on how we respond to illness, how does inflammation look like to us? Okay. If you're one of those people that produces a lot of interleukin-6, your CRP will be sky high. But let's say you produce interleukin-10 and not 6, your CRP will be normal, even though you have all the signs of inflammation. So at this level, I can't just use one marker. So I look at CRP. So the 5 markers that I look at, CRP, ferritin. So I'm looking for a high CRP, high ferritin, high homocysteine. Okay, these are all in the blood work. Low albumin. And then I look for a narrow ratio of the neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio. Okay, so if you look at the total neutrophil, absolute neutrophil, total absolute lymphocytes, the ratio should be about 3:1. If that's narrow, it's less than that, or it's reversed, lymphocytes are higher than neutrophils, you're most likely inflamed. Okay, so we look at 5, right? Next, I look at how much omega fatty acids. So this is your fish oil. What's the omega fatty acids like? Ideally, I would have liked to see one done here or one done here before we started this program. Okay? Because once you get down here, I know that you're inflamed and I want to intervene. Okay? So this is a blood test. You don't need to send them to the lab now. You can actually order a test from Genova. And in the past, when people have done my class, we set you up with Genova Diagnostics. It's a finger prick. You put it like a diabetic, send it off, and you get the results. Okay? And what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for how much trans fats they have. Trans fats are highly inflammatory. This is in most packaged foods, right? But I'm also specifically looking at this, the omega-3 index. I want the index to be 8 or more. And the way I got that data was like, if you look at fish oil and heart disease, what they showed was if the ratio was, and heart disease, for those of you who don't know, is an inflammatory condition. The reason you have plaques in your heart is because there's inflammation there. And so it patches it up, and then it narrows the artery, and then you get blockages, right? So it's not just pure cholesterol thing, okay? What they showed was people who had high doses of omega-3 index, if it's 8% or more, you're less likely to have a acute coronary event. So for my athletes, I want to drive inflammation down. I want the index to be 8. Now I'm going to show you something else. Let me just come out here and Ash, tell me if you can see this. Can you see this or no?
Yep.
What do you see there? Do you see Zoom? Do you see this?
Oh, I see Zoom.
Do you
No,
see
I see Zoom.
Do you see omega-3 index calculator or no?
No.
Okay, hang on, let me go here. How about now?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so this is a website called Omega Quant. Okay, and Omega Quant also, I'm not affiliated with any of this, by the way. I'm not. You can go buy your omega-3 index test. It's like $50, I think. Okay. Now, here's what's going to separate you. Most people can run the test, but you know that you want to tell them. So when you tell them how much fish oil, most people say, you should take fish oil. And you'll see all the podcasts, they all advertise their fish oil. How much fish oil? If you are going to give personalized, detailed advice, how much fish oil am I going to take? So you can come here, on here under resources, that's an omega-3 calculator. This is omegaquant.com. Okay, go here and you look. If I say my current omega is 4% and I want my target to be 9, okay, it will tell me you need 3,200 milligrams of fish oil, of EPA and DHA. Okay, now this is going to separate you from everyone else. This is a conversation that most people are not having, because The athlete knows I need to take fish oil, and they go, I'm taking fish oil. And you go, how much? And you go, I don't know, I'm taking 2, like that's what the bottle says. And you go, well, no, you need to know how much you need to take. And they're like, what do you mean? And you go, have you ever tested it? No. Well, let's test you. It's like $50. And then I'll tell you exactly how much you need to take. That is a level at which no one plays. And if you can do that, you will absolutely stand out. Okay? So Omega Quant, Ash, you want to put it in the chat? OmegaQuant.com.
Yep, we'll do.
Okay, thank you.
We'll do.
All right, now, are we back? Can you see my screen?
Yep, we're back.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so next I want to know what the vitamin D is doing. Okay, vitamin D controls about 5,000 genes in the human body, specifically for recovery through the immune system, how well you burn fat, and how well you sleep. So I don't want vitamin D to be low. And again, nowadays, we are at a point where you can do a finger prick and you can get your vitamin D levels, okay? I want the vitamin D levels to be between 45 and 55. Not too much, definitely not too low. Okay, 65, 80 is not good either. You want to be in that sweet spot, okay? And that's like a blood test that you can do, like a spot test, or you can do a full blood test, okay? If you stop there, you've already done more for this athlete than most people ever have. This athlete's coming off the training. The team are saying, hey, you know what? Like, I don't see the gains anymore. He's getting a bit tired. He just got a cold recently. She's kind of achy. You know, I don't see the performance has dropped a bit. And you go through why this athlete, why this situation, why now. You analyze their food training. You get a detailed history of what their training looked like. Okay. You can look for signs whether, you know, they are actually in overreaching, signs of chronic inflammation. If you can look at the blood work and say, yeah, they actually have the 5 markers here, of 3 of which are elevated. You can look at their omega-3 index and vitamin D, and you can intervene. Now, you're already setting yourself apart, right? Because look at the intervention. Can you make dietary suggestions? Some basic dietary suggestions, even if they're meeting the calorie requirements or not, right? You can. You can address the sleep. I'm going to show you how. You can tell them like, hey, it looks to me like based on your training volume and the amount you're eating and amount of recovery is not matching up, which is why you're getting tired. So let's increase the recovery and taper the training. Okay? And the recovery, like you can introduce acupuncture. You can introduce heat. You can introduce soft tissue. You can introduce doing nothing. Giving them permission. Some of the most driven athletes, like you telling them like, take a day off. It's like, they're like, you sure? And you're like, yeah, I need you to take a day off. And they're like, okay. Like, I don't know why they listen to me, but they need to be told. Okay. Supplementation, like you can introduce antioxidants there. You can introduce fish oil there, but strategically, how much? Right? If you did that, you're already serving this athlete beyond belief. All right. And then from there, if you want to go further, what we cover in the masterclass is like, I look at the mitochondria. I want to see, because of the allostatic load and the effect it has on micronutrients, I want to see if your mitochondria is working well. Does it have the nutrients? I want to see if you have the markers of oxidative stress. And I want to see if you have natural antioxidants. Okay. And all of this test nowadays in Genova, you can get it from a urine test. So this is a urine test. Okay. This here, this is called the organics test. It gives you all this data. And the way I teach it is this first 3 tells me whether or not you have carnitine. You have enough carnitine to burn fat. This one's here tell me if you have enough CoQ10, which the mitochondria needs in order to produce energy. This one here tells me if you have all the different vitamin Bs for the mitochondria to work efficiently. Okay? It's a urine test. You just need to know how to interpret this. And then how do you strategically intervene? Okay. And this is where you can say, you know what? I need you to be on carnitine for a month. I need you to take CoQ10. Are you on statins? You absolutely need to be on CoQ10. Okay. This is also a urine test. Look, this is an oxidative stress on the urine. No blood test. And we'll tell you, like if it shows you this, you know they have a lot of oxidative stress. You can intervene. Fish oil, omega-3 index will mop this up, as well as the antioxidants and the green drinks and the AG1s, right? I'm going to touch this briefly. Ideally, I want to study the gut before they start, so I have a baseline. But if not, and again, the gut test, like this is one of the most important tests, but it's difficult to get the athletes to do it because most of them are like, I don't want to deal with it. Like it's poop. I don't want to collect my poop and all this kind of stuff. But if you do get the results, I go through in detail how to look at this specifically. Okay. And then I also look at hormonal markers. There are three main ones. Okay. I want to look at sex hormones, thyroid, and adrenals. Okay. For thyroid, you'll get a blood test like this, which is like how I interpret it like this. But again, if you don't get a blood test, you can get a body temperature. Test the body temperature, okay? Like in males, do 3 consecutive days, average it out. That's the basal body temperature. If you start seeing that dropping, and that's an earlier sign of a thyroid gland that's becoming underactive, far more than the blood test. That happens way before the blood test changes. Okay? So this is free. So during the training, I monitor their temperatures. And if I see that dropping, I know they're coming off that curve. Okay? In women, I want to do it first 3 days of their cycles, because the body temperature will change. So I want to see first 3 days of the cycles, get a basal body temperature from there. Okay? And then when we talked about like hormones, when it comes to, again, this is a Dutch urine test, okay? When you look at female hormones, for instance, this is such a beautiful test because it tells me, how much hormones a female is making, okay? E1, estrone, is prepubertal. Estradiol is during reproductive age. Estriol, 3, is during menopause, okay? This is 10 times more potent than E1. E1 is 10 times more potent than E3, okay? So most of the people that we're dealing with are here. We want to see how we break this down. How is she breaking this down, okay? And detoxification, there are step 0, step 1, where you break it down here. This is called phase 1. And then you have phase 2, and then you eliminate it. Estrogen typically through the stool, okay? But look at this chart here. I want to see that my female is producing mostly this one. Okay? And I want to see the breakdown. I want to see that she's breaking down, okay, mostly through this one, this path here. This path here. Okay? Because these metabolites are toxic. So when I talk about hormones, I'm just not looking at the hormones themselves. I'm saying, A, you're producing it, but B, are you breaking down? Because if you don't, you're going to get estrogen toxicity or estrogen dominance, which is inflammatory. Okay, and we go through this in detail. Okay, if you got a stool study done, I'll want to see something called beta-glucuronidase enzyme activity. You see here, when you produce this, when you went hydroxy estrogen, and then you got methyl oxygen, and then you eliminate it in the stool, if it's in the stool and you have high activities of beta-glucuronidase, that enzyme is going to re-bake estrogen and bring it all the way back here and circulate it over and over and over again. So it's really important if a female has signs of chronic inflammation, estrogen dominance, right? And symptoms of chronic inflammation and estrogen dominance, we start intervening with this by looking at the stool. Is she not clearing estrogen to the system? Because if it is, then you can put on something called calcium glucarate and dim. Okay, and I cover that extensively in the course. Finally, I want to look at cortisol. Okay, a lot of you have heard of this, and I'm very particular about how we look at cortisol. Okay, I go through these things. First thing I want to look is the rhythm, and when I look at the rhythm of the cortisol, I want to know, is the evening cortisol elevated? If it is, there's a bunch of questions I need to ask. What time are you finishing your training? Are you getting in the sauna or a cold plunge like after sunset? Are you coming home to an environment that's not great? Are you doing a bunch of cardio late in the night? Like, why is your evening cortisol high? Okay? Because if your evening cortisol is high, your sleep is going to be disturbed and your recovery is going to go down. Now, if you can't absorb recovery, your training is going to increase your allostatic load. Okay? So look at this. I look at the rhythm. So like this person here, their evening cortisol is bumped up. So I want to ask why. Like, what are you doing in the evening? There's something you're doing. If it's not, then oftentimes it could be a gut issue. Oftentimes, if you have a silent gut infection, you will see an evening cortisol that's elevated. But more than often, the training is going on too late here, and they're bumping the evening cortisol. Okay? And then I look at the rhythm, and then I look at something called CAR, which is here. This is a urine test. This is a Dutch urine test. This is not a blood test. This here, waking morning, this here is called cortisol awakening response. If it's either going to be flat, it's going to be elevated, which is normal, or it's going to be depressed. If it's flat, chances are they are in pain. So you got to ask them because they may not tell you, or they've had a significant head injury. Okay, that's usually why the CAR is low. It's a reflection of the hypothalamic axis, hypothalamic pituitary axis. Okay, and then specifically, I show you how to interpret this. So look at this. This is how much cortisol someone is producing. This is how much they're breaking down. Now, cortisol, it's not good or bad. Like, they demonize cortisol. You need cortisol to be awake. Okay, too little, you feel flat. Too much, you're going to be inflamed and jacked up, and it's not good. It's out of sync. Okay, so if you have someone that's producing a ton of cortisol, so let's say their free cortisol is here, and their metabolites are only here, then they have a disproportionate amount of free cortisol going around, and they're not breaking down cortisol the way they need to. If on the other hand, you have a person with a bunch of metabolites, this is way over here, okay, and this is normal, then they're producing enough, but they're breaking it down way too much. And one of the reasons why that happens is the thyroid gland is not working. Okay, that is how we link all of this together. Again, we cover this extensively in the course. And then finally, I'm going to leave you with this. An easy way to understand, you want to pick up exactly when they start. The earlier you can pick up this dip, like if I can pick it up here versus here, it's better. Because I can intervene. I can change the diet, the sleep, the nutrition, the recovery, the training, the supplementation. And then I'm hoping like they bounce back up here instead of going all the way down here, right? One of the tricks is to look at the wearable data. So I don't look at like when they get sleep crowns and deep sleep and all that. I don't think we're there yet because it's all calculated. It's not measured. Okay. Like if you look at most of the wearables, they only measure 4 things. They take those 4 things. So they measure your movement, your resting heart rate, your depth of breathing, right? Okay. And your body temperature. And now they know like, okay, if you're in deep sleep, these 4 parameters will be the lowest. And so they say, okay, how much of that happened? And then they give you a assigned score. So they don't actually measure sleep because they're not using EEG. They're calculating sleep. Okay, so I don't use it for that. But what I do is I look at how many sleep cycles you have. And I average it out and go, okay, how long is each sleep cycle? This is why, like if you look at a Michael Jordan or a Tiger Woods, those guys need like 5 hours, 4 hours of sleep, and they can go compete and they're completely fine. And then you look at Federer, needs like 10 hours of sleep. Okay? It's important to know the duration, average duration of the sleep cycle. And for recovery, I want to see at least 5 sleep cycles. So if someone's sleep cycle is an hour long and they get 5 hours of sleep, that might be enough for them. Okay, so again, when someone says to you, how much sleep do I need? Now you can have an intellectual, nuanced conversation. Well, I need to know how long your sleep cycles are. What do you mean? What's the sleep cycle? Well, let me look at your Whoop data. Let me look at your Oura ring. And then you show them. You average it out and go, well, 5 sleep cycles for you is about 7 hours. 5 sleep cycles for you is 5 hours. For you might be 10 hours. Okay? And then I look at the HRV and the heart rate. Now, I'll start off with the heart rate, right? At this point here, if you can measure, if you get a baseline, now all of this you need baseline. If you have a baseline heart rate here, all along here, as they get fitter, you'll see the heart rate get lower. As they get here, you'll see the resting heart rate starting to go up. Okay, so I'm looking for the basal body temperature to come down, showing the thyroid is like fried or getting tired. And I'm looking for the resting heart rate to go up. Okay, but in order to know that, I need my baseline. And then I'm also looking at the HRV. Now, HRV, just to give you an idea, this is such a powerful piece of information. This will tell you whether the baby that's in the mom who's about to squeeze the baby out, push the baby out, if that baby is going to come out blue or pink. HRV is going to tell you whether you're going to survive the first 30 days of your heart attack. That's how powerful HRV is. That's where it came from. So when people use it like it's, oh, my HRV is low and my HRV is high, I'm like, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, okay? What the trend is, I'm looking for a down, like as they go down here, the HRV starts going down, okay? Or sometimes, like for me, my HRV lives around 35 to 40, 45, okay? As I'm going down, suddenly I might see an overshoot. And I used to think that was a blip, but actually it's not. It's basically, HRV is a balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, okay? And it's never sympathetic on, parasympathetic off. It's always, it's like pepper and salt. It's just a little bit of balancing all the time. It's like driving, brakes, accelerator. It's like biceps, on, off. Like it's not on and off. They're always in symbiosis, right? As you're getting tired, the sympathetic is more and the parasympathetic is less. But every now and again, when you get, the body knows like it's too much, boom, you'll see the parasympathetic go up, slamming on the brakes, and you'll see a rise in HRV. So I'm looking for elevated resting heart rate. I'm looking for a HRV downward trend. I'm looking for the occasional HRV blip. Okay, so those are all the markers that I'm looking for here that don't cost you anything apart from a wearable data. Okay, and finally with the HRV, this is in women. Look, the HRV changes depending where they are on the menstrual cycle. So a woman who's not training, okay, if you look here, HRV is in green. Look at the HRV. It will fluctuate based on her cycle. Okay, so will the body temperature, so will be resting heart rate. So female athletes, extremely vigilant. Like you have to be very clear with them. You have to get baseline with them. The good thing about female athletes is they will follow things to a T. They're amazing. The guys are a nightmare. Okay, but the girls are a delight to work with, most of them. Okay, and then I also want to show you, remember we talked about fish oil? If you introduce fish oil to this person, expect the HRV to change. Look at all this data. Okay, so if you got an inflamed athlete, HRV is going down, you put them on fish oil, expect, like, I may not be able to interpret this HRV. Now, most people don't know that, and they won't even tell the athlete that. So when I get an athlete, I go, look, for the next probably 2-3 weeks, I can't interpret the HRV because I just bumped up your fish oil, and it's going to affect it. So let's just keep a baseline and let's just see what we see. I'm going to go more by symptoms. Okay. So I hope that was useful. This was basically my work for 20 years. Everything that I showed you there is what I've tried and tested in real life at both amateur level and at the highest level. This is what you learn in the masterclass. These are all the modules, 14 of them, starting with things like evidence-based medicine. What is that even? Like, it's not evidence-based medicine has been reduced down to double-blinded placebo-controlled trials. No, it's not. It's a clinician's perspective. A patient's experience is also evidence-based medicine, right? Go through a whole, like, 14 different modules. You will have homework. Okay. Like I told you, this is going to challenge you. And you need to submit this if you want a certificate of completion. There are 2 case histories that's going to force you to go through this. And every week we have a live call. Every 2 weeks we have a live call with me, which is supposed to be an hour long. It's a bit like this webinar, but it'll overrun because of the questions I get. And I don't leave to answer all the questions. Okay. I want to leave you with this. Okay. Why you should do this course right now. This is the only time I'm going to tell you. After this, I'm not going to try to convince you of anything. Okay. This course I put together because it didn't exist when I was training. I wish this course existed because I took everything I know, including talking to athletes, how to ask them questions, things no one ever taught me that I put together. Like I said, this was created from the field. Okay. It's information that you're not going to get out there, and you get my perspective, my mistakes, all the things I did wrong, so that you don't have to do it. And this course is for you if you like to be challenged. If you need to be pushed, and you are the kind of person just like me, unless it's a deadline, it never gets done, and you want to show up and go, hey, Greg, where's your homework? Okay. This course is for you. Okay. Why me? I would say because I care a lot. I jump on the live calls. Most courses you do now, and trust me, like I spent $45,000 on courses last year. So I know what's out there. Most of them will tell you to join a Facebook group and tell you that's the bonus. I don't care about the Facebook. I mean, sure, if you guys want to do it and join, great. But you get a call with me personally for every 2 weeks for 12 weeks. That's why I don't care about the Facebook. I don't offer it as a bonus or anything like that. You have access with me. If you get your bloods done, if you have a question about an athlete, in the live calls, we will go through all of this. Last time we did it, I also added like bonus calls. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that now or not. I do it depending on the group. Every group is different, and we learn from each other. Like, that's why I asked you, like, what's your background? Because there's already people on this group. I hope you join, because I'm going to pick your brains on this course. And I go like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this nutrition? Like, chiropractic, like, what do you think of this? Okay. And why now? Because of a few very, very interesting things. Okay. I'm going to show you a device look, I don't know how many of you know, I just trained a very high level athlete for 3 weeks. I stayed with him and trained him. Okay. And I used this device, and it's a finger prick. And I was measuring his oxidative stress to show that I can push him super high until I saw him like, okay, he's fried. And then I backed off the training. Okay. Genova Diagnostic is coming out with blood tests, finger prick blood tests. Okay. I had a call with them and the CEO the other day that is coming down the pipeline, that you don't have to send these athletes to labs anymore. You can order this test, get it done, and you'll get the results. Okay. The tests are becoming more and more available. So if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, and your athletes are going to have those test results. So if you're able to interpret this and have an intelligent conversation about this, now is the time, because it's coming. Secondly, there are two companies out there that are creating called digital twins. And at the rate at which they are going, it's a bit like ChatGPT. Like what it started off with and what it is now, it's staggering. The digital twin, in the next 4 or 5 years, an athlete's going to come, they're going to have a digital twin, and you're going to be able to say, hey, if I do the program like this, and I put this nutrition in, this, what's the outcome that's going to happen? Or they're traveling, if I put this supplement in or change the sleep schedule like this, what's going to happen? You can experiment with the twin and then come back and have a conversation with the person. Okay? That's where this industry is going. And that's why this course is super important right now, because I put AI there, if you see that. Artificial intelligence is not going to replace you, because you have what I call authentic intelligence. Somebody has to take that data and explain it to the athlete. And that person has to have a relationship with the athlete, for the athlete to trust and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to go with this. And that's why you should do this right now. Okay, so you get this, what you get. You can download all the course materials, you get the bi-weekly calls, you get the homework, I'm working on a module right now, probably going to be 6 months before it's out, on vision in sports. How to use vision to actually improve outcomes. Okay. And then the reason I give you access to 2 cohorts is the first time you go through this, it's like drinking from a fire hose. I just want you to pay attention. The next cohort, you'll be like, oh, I get it. Makes sense. The third cohort, you'll be like, okay, I got it. That's why it's, I put you like join the other 2 cohorts. So, okay. And if you sign on today and use this coupon code here, Ash, you got to send them the coupon code.
Yep. I'll send everyone the code as well.
And I think that's
I know.
on for, is that on for 72 hours? I think it's 72 hours if you sign up. Okay. All right. Any questions?
Yes, we have a few questions in the chat. I know Greg had a question
Yeah.
about chronic inflammation, and it was, is there a percentage of those or a ratio that would really set off red flags for chronic inflammation?
Neutrophil lymphocyte ratio that's reversed will like really make me alarmed, because that is NASA showed this data. That's where I got these numbers from. When they monitored astronauts, if the neutrophil lymphocyte ratios reverse, chances of them getting a viral infection, as in a cough, cold, flu, COVID, any of those, or even a cold sore come reactivating, was super high, because the immune system is taking a beating. Okay. So the neutrophil lymphocyte ratio 3:1 is ideal. As it's narrowing down, that's a sign that there's a lot of stress, chronic inflammation in the system. A CRP of up to 3 is acceptable. And if you are training, like if I'm training an athlete, I want the CRP to be high, because I am stressing them. That's a control. It's like a controlled explosion, right? I'm deliberately frying this person. I'm deliberately breaking this body down to create an adaptation. Okay. But after that, the inflammatory response should calm down and it should go back to baseline. If during the recovery phase, the chronic inflammation markers, like the CRP, is still 15, then that's too much. Something's going on there. And typically, it's the gut, it's lack of nutrition, or it's the gums, like they have dental disease. Like start there, look at stuff like that, ask them those questions. And if it's not, think about the gut. Okay. Or like a psychological stressor, looking at sleep and all this kind of stuff. The ferritin is also a great marker for acute stress. Albumin, a low albumin will tell me like this stress has been going on for a while. Okay. So if I see 3 out of those 5 and they have symptoms, again, don't forget why this athlete, why this injury, why now, what symptoms are they having, right? And then I look at the biomarkers and it matches up. I'll be like, okay, this athlete is inflamed. So does that answer your question or no?
Yes, that answers my question. Obviously, I know that the course will go into it deeper. But surface level, yes, that does.
Okay. All right. What are the questions?
Okay, so Crystal, will you address in the masterclass how to analyze data from wearables and even compare devices, discussing accuracy and variability in.
That's one of my okay, yeah, I actually spent a lot of time answering that question because I give you an example of HRV, right? If you have a female, where is she in the menstrual cycle? Do we have a baseline? Okay. If I took my HRV standing up versus sitting down, it's going to be different. If I took my HRV in the morning versus midday, it's going to be different. We have zero data on continuous HRV monitoring, zero. We don't know what to do with that. So you have to compare like for like. So if you have HRV from, one RSSD system versus a non-RSSD system, how you compare the two. Like we discuss all of that. There's a whole module on wearable data. And actually, you guys need to write this down. There's a company called ELEMind, ELEMIND.com, that I just connected with. They're going to send me a sample. You can go and sign up, be one of the early users. It's an EEG device, wearable EEG device that's going to measure sleep. It is the first thing that's going to measure sleep. Okay. They're based out of, I think I want to say MIT. So yeah, I one of the things you'll see in this course is I cover a lot of things that's coming out that's not readily available. I'm so blessed and in an extremely privileged position where people send me stuff or tell me stuff, and I try to like look at it, and if I think it's good, then I put it out there. Like I said, I don't have many other platforms I do this in, so I do it in my masterclass. Okay.
Perfect. And then Tiara wants to know, are the live calls mandatory? Are the modules self-paced? I thought it was a good question, so everyone could hear the answer for that.
Yeah, so the modules are self-paced. I will open the modules, like the first 4 modules open like straight away. Then I open it as we go along. Okay. The reason is if you jump, you're going to get confused, in my experience, having done this, right? So I like to do that. The live calls are not mandatory. They will be recorded and they will be posted up like within 24 hours of the live calls. It's good for you to do the live calls because if you don't do it, you don't come back and do it because most people get busy, but you have the opportunity to ask questions as you go along. So it's not mandatory, but it's highly recommended. And one of the things I would encourage anyone who joins is as soon as you join, when you have access, go look at all the live calls, because the live calls themselves, 3 cohorts worth of live calls, is more valuable than the whole course, all the videos that I made. They are incredible. The stuff we covered there, incredible stuff. Okay.
Dr. Ara, quick question.
Yeah.
In the curriculum, it says that you talk about the assessment of brain chemistry.
Yeah.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about what exactly that covers? Just a brief overview and how deep down the rabbit hole we go.
So I ask 2 questions. Is the brain, where I actually had the slide here, but it was so long, I decided to take it out. When I look at cortisol and brain are very closely related, and thyroid are closely related. So when I look at cortisol, one of the tests that Genova will do is, as part of the organic acid, is to look at components to tell me, is the brain inflamed and is the brain stressed? Okay. So when I look at brain chemistry, those are two things that I'm asking. Is the brain inflamed and is the brain stressed? With the EEG things that devices that are coming out, we can now use that data, EEG data, to even take it to one level higher. So now you'll be playing at a very, very different level. But that's, I look at urine organic acids to answer that question.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, next question is, what is the device that you use for measuring oxidative stress as finger stick?
Oh, it's I can't tell you yet because it's not out yet, but it's coming out. If you see it, like, I don't know if you can see it, like, you see, it's got a sticker on there. It's a prototype. So this device is going to come out, like they're very close to launching it within the next probably year. And there's tons of those things. Like, look at this one here. Like, I was running out of time, but this is the device that I use. Okay. And listen, guys, like, these are all additional services that you can bundle up and charge for. If you know how to interpret this, you'll be one of the few people that say, I'm going to do this. And, it's $25 per test, and that's how much it is. Like, look at this. This is a device. I put a strip here. I analyze your sweat, and it tells me exactly how much sodium you are losing in your sweat. Okay? This is by MX3. Can you see it or no? That's the company, MX3. You can go buy this. Now, this device, I think I paid $900 for it. Okay? I have tested, so I charge $125 to do your sweat analysis. If I did 10 athletes, I've already paid for the device. See what I mean? But like, this is the kind of stuff we will cover on the course. And then I teach you how to interpret that.
Okay, perfect. So a few questions about the course. I'm just going to stick them together. Will it be scheduled? Do you have a schedule for timing of when the live calls will be? And exactly how much time each week would be committed for the material?
The material is self-paced. The live calls will be every Tuesday starting. So I'm going to launch the course on February 1st. So the first live call will be the first Tuesday, 2 weeks later. So I will send you, Ashley will send you, not me. Ashley will send you the exact of the calls. Now, I try to do the calls at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's traditionally when I used to do it, but it depends on where. If most of my people are in the West Coast, I will adjust it and probably do it around 9 p.m. And the calls are typically an hour, but I will tell you, like, go back and look at the live call recordings. They're all like an hour and a half to 2 hours. What was the other part of the question? The modules?
How committed, how much time would you have? Sorry.
Yeah. So if you spend an hour a week going through the module, you'll be good. You'll be really good. But that's just the information. Getting to the habit of asking why this athlete, why this illness, why this, apply it immediately to every situation that you see. Right? That thing is so profound. Like, it was taught to me by Tom Crisp, purely with working with athletes. But now I look at it for every single situation. If I have an argument with someone, I'm like, why did this happen? Why now? Why with that person? How was I when this situation happened? Even when I answered the question, like, why should you do this course now? Why this course? Why am I the best one to teach you for this? And why now? Like, so you'll be learning things in there that are going to provoke your thinking. And I also want you to take, every time you do a module, I want to think, okay, how can I turn this into a unique conversation that provokes the athlete or just shows the athlete like, oh, wow, this person is different to everyone else I've met. So about an hour a week.
Janae, she says she actually has a question. She didn't write it. So Janae, if you want to ask the question now, that'd be great.
Hi,
Hey.
I have a lot of my patients, it's South Florida, so they're active all the time, and a lot of them do Pilates and yoga and tennis, and they do a lot of cardio daily.
Yeah.
A lot of them are underweight, they don't eat. I can identify the problem, but getting these patients to stop exercising twice a day has been
Yeah.
really tough.
Okay.
They don't like to hear that.
Yeah.
So is there a way that I can get them to still be active? Because what I get a lot is it's good for my mental health.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can I still have them walk? Can I still have them move without and get the recovery that they need?
100%. Great question. Very, very common scenario, especially in today's age where people are all doing water fast and keto diet and intermittent fasting and time control feeding. And then they want to exercise 3 times a day. Like, I get it, right? The question is so if I had that situation, I go, listen, I'm all for it. Go work out twice a day. Okay. But for your mental health, you also don't want to be in pain. You don't want to feel tired. You don't want to lose your sex drive. And you must be able to sleep well. Okay. So let's put you on a 2-a-day program. Let's put these other things in place that helps you get the most out of the 2-day program. Okay. And we tweak the 2-day program like this. Maybe it's not, if you're doing tennis and a high intensity interval training, that's too much. That's not enough variability in the system. And that's what I would tell them. I'd say if you're doing tennis, which is, reaction time, speed. So like when you look at movement per se, right? I break it down into power, strength, endurance, speed, agility, and vision. Okay. So I would say, okay, you know what? You can do 2 a day as long as you hit all 6. If you're only doing 2 a day and you're only hitting these 4, you're leaving a lot. Your mental health will be way better if you hit all 6. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Anyone else, Ash?
John Kalman also had a question about, John Kalman had a question about digital twinning.
Yeah.
If he wants to answer
John.
or ask.
I was just trying to find out if you're using the Theriome Aristotle testing, the metabolomics for digital twinning.
I'm not. I have looked at it. It's not there. So there's a company called Svexa that look at all the different data, and so it's using the data points that we need to identify that are significant for this digital twinning program. Okay. And it's not there yet. It's going to get there at the rate at which they're going to be able to say, you know what, of the data that we need, these 6 will be 90% of the changes that we're going to see, and that's going to be different for every single person. So the metabolomics data is there. The problem with the metabolomics data is same as the genetic data. The sample in which they got the baselines from are not diverse enough. And that's a problem that they are solving in real time right now.
And then a popular question is, how much is the actual course?
Oh God, I thought we told them. The cost is I think 2,997. And yeah, I think it's 2,997. Yes, correct. 2,997. I don't even know how much the cost is. Wow. Can we give them the link? We'll
Yep,
send you the link. We'll send you the link to join. If I was a true marketer, I should have put the link in the chat, but like, it's okay. It's all good.
So then Greg has a question. Is ordering blood work and other testing something that I could do at the personal coaching level, non-medical?
Okay, so yes, in America, you can direct them. So there's a company called like Direct Labs, which you don't need a practitioner. You don't need to be a practitioner. You can tell the patient, hey, go get your labs done here. They go to Direct Labs. You tell them what test to order. They can order it, pay for it. The results will go with them, and then they can show it to you. Okay. The finger prick test, that can all be done on site. Like omega-3s, I'll literally do a finger prick, 3 spots, 4 spots, send it off, and then I get the results back. Same with vitamin D. The industry is going that way. Okay. For what we need, I'm trying to do more and more of the finger spot tests and urine tests and stool tests. And you don't need to be a medical practitioner to do any of that.
Okay. You mentioned you're working on the vision training. Will those who purchase the course get access to that and any new courses you create?
Yes. This cohort, yes. But the next cohort, the price won't be the same. Like every time I launch if I put in I just can't do it. Like I spent, I think I was going to say like $30,000 studying vision in sports, through multiple different experts, and then putting that material together to create the course. So when I do launch that as part of the next cohort would not be 2,997. I don't know what it's going to be, but it will not be 2,997 because you're getting an entire, that module alone is probably worth $2,000, right? Because it's very, it's tech heavy, but also very science heavy, and it's stuff that you're never going to see anywhere else. For now, anyway, like not that I've seen. That's why I had to put it together. So yes, to answer the question, you get all 3 cohorts, you get all the live calls. The next 2 cohorts you'll be able to join. And then for this particular group, what Ashley will do is she will put all of you guys in one block saying cohort 4. And so cohort 1, cohort 2, cohort 3, cohort 4, any new thing that I come up with, you have access to. And if you don't, just ping us and we'll take care of it.
And guys, please, I'm at support@functionalsportsmedicine.com. So if there are any questions about the course, homework, anything, I'll be your point of contact. Message me. And if you guys want to get to know each other as well, I'll create a WhatsApp group for you so you guys can have your own little community for getting to know each other, asking each other questions and everything like that. So it'll be really, really exciting, and it'll be released.
Do they have access to the chat?
They don't, but
so go to the Q&A, go to the Q&A and put the link to the course in the Q&A. So the course, if you want to sign up for the course, it's at functionalsportsmedicine.com. Okay. And then the coupon code, we'll put it in the Q&A there, so you have it. And then I will send you an email as well with the recording.
I'll send everyone an email with the recording and the code for the course as well, and the course details. And then, do we know a date for the vision course release date?
I'm going to say August.
Okay, perfect. TR, I hope that answers your question. And then I think that's all the questions we have in the Q&A. Is there anything else that we can answer before? Just pop it on the Q&A and I'll send everyone who was here the course material or the course link, the code, and a recording of this video as well.
Okay, so just while you guys are thinking, just to summarize, these are all the kind of things that you will get if you finish the course. Okay. And like I said, you have access to the modules. So even if you don't finish the course, in order to get a certificate of completion though, I want you to finish the course in the time that we set for you, because it shows me that, you took this seriously, that, you paid attention and you deserve the certificate, right? If you can't finish it for whatever reason, write to us, let me know, and I'll assess it at the individual case. Like it's not, we're not hard. Like life happens. It happens to all of us. And if you can't finish it for a legitimate reason, yes. But if you just didn't get around to it, come on, that's not fair. Okay. So in order to do that, you need to finish the materials. You need to send in the homework, and then you get your certificate. Okay. These are all the modules, like I said. Okay. You get all the materials, you can download it, you get the calls, you have access to all the cohorts like the calls from the previous cohorts. You have access to any new modules that we do, and I will personally, the homework is important. The reason I put that as a big deal is because I have to mark and read your answers. I'm not going to outsource your work. If you took the trouble to do the work, nobody else is going to look at it apart from me. Okay.